All right, we are live. Welcome to Cork Cyber Rewired Session 1. I'm Dan Candy, CEO of Cork, and I'm joined today by two people who actually know what they're talking about, which is helpful because I just get to be the hostess with the mostest. Couple quick housekeeping items. The chat is open. Use it. We'll get to the questions. If something resonates, drop a one-liner so that we know we're not just talking to the void. We love the interaction. A little bit about the session. This is what it is, what it's not. This is not a product walkthrough. It's not a feature parade. We've done plenty of those, and frankly, you can go watch them on YouTube at 10x the speed. That'll always be fun. This is the first session in a series we are calling Rewired, and the idea is simple. Cork has evolved a lot. So whether you're a partner who's been with us since the early days, or you're sitting in today wondering what all this good noise is about, and the way that Cork shows up in your business in 2026, honestly, it's materially different than it was even a year ago. So today's about the foundations. In the next session in the series, we go deeper on each of the other four paths that Mora is going to introduce. So think of today as the map, and the next sessions are the terrain. Before we go any further, I want to know who's in the room. So we're going to drop a quick poll. One question, 3 seconds. Where are you in your Cork journey? Are you just looking? Are you kicking tires? Are you ready running? We'd really just like to know where you're at. And if you're just learning, I promise that we won't slide into your DMs. Maybe Mora will, but not me. Cool. Good mix here. Love this. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to do intros while these are coming in. So quick note on the speakers. Mr. Mora is head of sales and strategic partnerships for Cork. He's been in the channel for over a decade. He sat in your seat. He's owned the renewal conversations. He knows the QBRs, the 2 a.m. tickets. He knows so many different technologies. And he's going to show you today how some of the smartest partners are actually operationalizing Vantage and Cork Protect. So pay attention to the workflow choices. These are real product concepts and deployment, so should be fun. Also, we are very lucky to have Dr. Tait C. Tait is the president and CEO of Sentry Computing out of Seattle. Longtime partner, one of the very firsts. Good friend of ours. Tait has been in this industry for over 20 years. He's seen every flavor of the platform promise come and go. He's going to give us the unvarnished version of what has changed when Cork actually got operationalized inside of his business. So no script. We told him to be honest. We are setting them up kind of raw. This should be fun.
It's the way I like to operate anyway. Works well.
It's the only way that you operate.
Pretty much, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to the discussion later. So we're going to kick it off with Mora first and then get into the roundtable second. So honestly, Mr. Andrew, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for joining. Since Dan already went with the whole we're going off script thing, I wanted to throw out a little fun fact about Tait. So he's in the upper northwest, and I've seen him a bunch of times, and I've throughout the seasons, if you will, and hardly ever do I catch him in pants or closed-toed shoes. And so it's a very see, there you go, right? Like shorts and no shoes today, right on point as what I would expect from you. So, and it's probably 30 degrees up where you are. So
it's 70 here, and it's very nice actually. But about 96% of the year I wear shorts and sandals. That's correct.
that is a very true statement. So
yeah.
I appreciate you jumping on today, brother, and all the realness that you bring. So I'll show you a couple of things. As Dan said, we don't want to like just feature pitch, and we have series on that functionality. We've done a lot of changes over the last year, and not just from the platform perspective. So kudos to Marcus and his team and everything they've done from adding integrations and that whole piece of it. But obviously we've added some new coverages. So we have the $25,000 and $50,000 in protection, which has been really popular for people who have cyber insurance. And so that piece of it, because it's really, really palatable from a pricing perspective as well, has been really popular for our partners. The other thing that has been a really crazy change is anybody, because I know we have a mix of partners and prospects on here, anybody who has sold Cork in the past and actually know Cork as like a warranty company, we have massively gone under an undertaking to try to change that verbiage. And so I would highly recommend anybody who's having trouble getting the actual penetration of a Cork warranty, it's because just think about your normal buying process. Like we've been asking partners from like a social experiment and kind of having fun with this, where we've said, hey, Tait, take off your MSP hat, put on your consumer hat, and now walk into a Best Buy. You're buying an electronic, an appliance, or you go into a car dealership, and I say, hey, Tait, do you want to buy your extended warranty for whatever item? Right? What's the typical answer? It's no. And so we wanted to go away from that portion of it, and we really wanted to focus on financial protection. So I highly, highly recommend anybody from who has been selling warranties to shift into the verbiage of financial protection, because that's been a massive change. And what ends up happening, instead of your consumers or your end users saying no, thank you, they just say, well, what does that mean? And then that's where it opens the door for a conversation for y'all. But what I want to do is just show a couple things from what people are doing, especially like partners like Tait, right? Because there's what's interesting about Cork, and what we've realized is there's obviously a bunch of different ways that you can utilize and leverage our tools, right? And so we have our Vantage platform, which is our bread and butter now, which we lead with, which 2 years ago, if you came into Cork, we were leading with the warranty play. That's obviously shifted. And again, to kudos to Marcus's team, because they've added so much development into this, and they've added so many features, functionalities, which just helps your day-to-day run a little bit smoother, which then just adds the ability to add financial protection if you want for your customers at the end. I'll give you some scenarios where it makes a lot of sense, because I know there's some partners on here that have just done a full blanket rollout across their end user base, because it makes a lot of sense, not only from a coverage perspective for the end user, but also for the MSP as well, because we've added another layer of coverage within our protections. Tait, did you want to say something?
I do. I think it's
Yeah,
worth
please.
jumping in. To anyone that's like looking at this, especially, or having trouble selling it, when I saw this product, I bought it right away for everyone, that all of our clients, every one of them. It wasn't even a question. It was just something I knew we needed to do. And we did it from a, how do we get a tool that looks at every single other tool that we have, that can really pinpoint like anomalies between things, and we can go through that exercise later. But it's just like literally keeping an eye on every single different system and how they're interacting, and where there's duplicates, and all this stuff that you want to know anyway. And then when you introduce to customers this concept of not only a warranty thing, it's you want to get it to them as a way to get into a financial conversation with them, right? And it really is about like, hey, let's look at your cyber insurance policy. Let's see what Cork can do to lessen that cyber insurance policy. And it can. We basically used Cork and then another cyber broker called DataStream, which I'll plug them really quickly, and to look at like, hey, let's go on a client and give their current policy to DataStream, and then they come back 40% less. It's happened, right? And that's an easy sell. And then you can kind of upsell clients on the larger warranty as needed, right? At larger financial protection product as needed. But it really was an opportunity to have those conversations that you need to have. The way we sold most of our cyber product, in fact, almost all of it at this point, is in a bundled kind of package. And so we bundle the MDR and the email security and blah 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 in with Cork, and as Cork is the dashboard, the way to manage all of these things. And we don't necessarily tell the clients individually what that is. We do talk about Cork, but it only is an opportunity to talk about everything, right? And I think that's the way it's better positioned, because you got to, I know it's such a cliche, but you've got to get into that boardroom type of conversation with the clients, and not, to Andrew's point, talk about, hey, I just bought a car, you want a warranty now. It's more like, no, you need this. Like, you need this as part of your overall protection plan as a company. And I know we'll probably talk about it later, but we had a client that utilized this and got a big fat check, and for good reason. And that's, it's an easy story once you do that, of course, but it's got to be a financial conversation.
Well, and so like the whole point of this master class, the initial series, was to go over like the generalization of Cork, right, and how people are really leveraging it, like Tait. And so I want to dig in on that portion that he's talking about a little bit. What I really think about is when people or your end users hit you all up, as far as the community goes, to help them with their cyber questionnaires. I
Yeah.
believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I 100% believe those customers who are asking you to help them with their questionnaires have every intention to purchase cyber insurance, right? Because they're going through that renewal
Or
process. So
renew it.
but they're gonna purchase it, and so they're gonna have to pay a premium, right? And so that's where my hat comes on to where like, okay, they're coming to you, they're gonna have the intention of coming out of pocket for some type of expense. And if you can change what that equation is to better in their favor, again, for something they're already gonna purchase. So the easier scenario to talk about is if a customer of anybody in the community is gonna spend $20,000. So y'all who've met me know I'm bad with math, so I use easy round numbers. So let's just say that the customer is going to buy $5,000 worth of insurance on a premium, and then they're going to spend $15,000 on managed services collectively throughout the year. So $20,000 for, call it 2027, right? That's what their budget is for these types of services. What if in a world our partners could show them where they don't sacrifice any coverage, they add coverage, but they pay a lesser rate than that 20K?
It
That's
happens.
where that changes and what Tate was talking about from y'all going from like just selling product and talking to the CTOs, the CISOs, the VCIOs into talking to the CFOs and CEOs. And so that's where this shifts the conversation. And so it's really cool because again, like what's interesting is Cork, for those partners obviously know we don't sell insurance, but we know that y'all are the nucleus between the end user and the insurer, right? Because you guys handle the technology. And so that's what's really cool about that piece of it. The other thing that I usually ask partners today, especially over the last couple months, is we obviously have a way to help enrich insurance, help get a price or better coverage or whatever. But then I say take that piece out of it. Because like what we get is a mixed bag of people when we ask partners like, hey, do your customers have cyber insurance? And it's usually like, yeah, 50% do, 50% don't. Great. Let's talk about the 50% that don't have cyber insurance. Why is this beneficial for them? I have yet to meet an MSP in the 14 years that I've been doing this who sell products to their end users without them assuming that they want to consume those, right? So I don't think you guys just sell products and gals sell products just to like collect a
For
bill.
funsies.
Yeah, just for funsies, right? And so, but the question I usually ask, especially when you think about scale and you think about how do I get bigger, how do I break through that next ceiling? When I ask the question, if I buy something as a consumer, as a net new consumer to any MSP, and I ask the question, how do I know that all my employees, or how do you know all my employees are actually consuming all the stuff that I'm actually paying for?
Yeah.
So that's where it also comes into play where we want to validate that stuff. And what's cool is what we're really doing is we're cross-referencing all of your tools from a quantity perspective. And should they be there? And if they're off, we're going to notify you in those two aspects. And so what's really interesting, and Marcus, please, tell me if I should stop telling people your secret sauce, but like the reality of what's happening is we're having the tools talk to each other. So if you think about what the community has asked for years and years and years, for even people who purchase products that are out there, we all know those bigger players, they don't have their tools talk to each other very well. And this is where Cork comes in. And our long goal, right, is to be able to, because as of right now, and you've heard me yet to say like a one pane of glass, because realistically, I can't view all of your products today. I can view a good majority of them, and we're getting closer and closer where we're going to be adding more and more categories of what we're observing. Tate's one of the big proponents of always asking us to get in like SASE and SIEM and that type of stuff, right? And so like those requests are very important to us. That's what I would also say, just for everybody as a disclaimer on this call. We take your requests very, very seriously, and we implement them very, very quickly. So it's a very difference of like the traditional answer of like, hey, I'll get this on the roadmap that you'll see it in 8 to 12 months. With Marcus and team, it's usually 30 days or less. And so it's really, really cool because we are an API-based product where we don't have an agent, we don't have the lightweight agent, the typical terminology. So the onboarding, all of that from a nuisance perspective is very, very easy and straightforward.
It's really, really easy. I mean, that's the simplest thing about the product, right? You don't have to like throw a bunch of agents on users' machines and explain what it is and all that. I mean, you can set it up very quickly.
Yeah, typically when we tell people we have 100 in integrations, partners' eyes, you can tell that the agent play starts to come into their mind, and they're like, this is literally going to take me forever. And again, since we are API based, it's really, really straightforward. Where when you come into the integrations, right? Look at any one of the tools. They're very, very similar where we're going to ask the client ID, client secret. We'll be able to connect to the tools. And again, you're going to see the usual players, right? Our team went after the things that most of the community uses from the categories that we actually cover. And so what's cool about that, and the other disclaimer I'll throw out there is if there are tools that y'all are consuming under the categories that we currently observe today. So take like SaaS backup, for instance. The one that I've been running into the last 2 weeks has been MSP 360, formerly known as Cloudberry. Basically, we don't have that today, but as long as Cloudberry, which they do, as long as that other tool has an open API, we can connect into those tools. Usually it's 2 weeks or less. And so it's pretty, again, quick how fast we can do this.
Those happen very fast, by the way, just to confirm that. The ones that they're easy to integrate will integrate very quickly.
Yeah. And honestly, most of the tools within the community nowadays, there's a handful that don't allow it, but like most of them do, right? And
If you're
especially if
using
like,
one of those tools that doesn't allow that kind of thing, you might look for another tool. Just throwing that there. I mean, in the world we're living in now, like I can't even imagine tools that don't have APIs or MCPs at this point, right? So.
there's a handful, there's a couple of the usual suspects, but
Sure.
it happens. And I think they'll loosen it up, as it comes down the road. But cool. Dan, how am I doing on time?
You're doing well. And just an interesting thing was looking at the results from that last poll. 74% of the 35 people that responded talked about security posture and visibility as that thing one, kind of that tried and true, utilization of Vantage, right? But close on the heels was the economic impact and the differentiation that Cork gives partners. So again, that goes back to what you guys were talking about, cyber security insurance. What happens at that in that QBR, that business review that you're doing with the client, and it all comes back to validating the work that our partners are doing, all of the work that they're doing across too many technologies in the stack to ensure that all the lights are on, all the doors are locked, all the windows are locked up, and that y'all can have these differentiated types of conversations with clients that's really bringing it back to the money, right? Bringing it back to the dollars rather than just the data.
I'll say if you haven't hooked up, especially if you haven't played with Cork in a while, you need to go back in there because, as everyone here will tell you, a lot has changed and it's gotten better and it's gotten easier. And there's a bunch of little, like even new tools and vulnerability insights that are like really cool that you may not have even seen yet. But the first thing it will do when you hook it up to all these things is it'll start giving you, it'll show you things you didn't think you were going to see, right? And that's super important. And I know there are other tools and mechanisms, especially in an AI-driven world, that can do some of these things, but this has like more than one layer to it, right? And I just think you find out all of a sudden, oh, we haven't been like retiring machines out of Intune properly, so like yeah, we removed our RMM and blah blah blah, but like, oh wait, Intune, and you see those things come up when you implement this tool.
And so we'll go through like the poll, right? And we'll work through that piece, like the security posture and visibility perspective.
Yep.
So think about that question what I just asked, where I said, hey, how do you validate my stuff 3, 6, 9 months down the road for however I buy? There's two ways that you can use it with Cork, right? Theoretically, you can log in here and see what I'm consuming or not consuming, what's checking in, what's not checking in. Other partners will also use the two-way ticketing that we have and just go into their PSA tool to see what human intervention they have, right? And so like, this is where I say what's cool about us and what's also like, I would say a detriment is that there's a lot of flexibility. So it's not a black and white tool. It's not like hey, this is exactly how you have to use it. But what's really nice about this is that we're constantly alerting you. And so I would say like we would over alert and we tell you like every single day until one of two things happen. You either silence the alert that we're giving you or you actually fix what we're telling you to fix. And so that's where it really comes into play where we're saying, hey, like, we want to be on top of this because one of two things happens. We want to make sure that you all are protected from an image perspective, because if you're selling them a tool and they're not consuming it, obviously that comes back to reputation. The other thing is we want to lessen the likelihood if they do have cyber insurance for denial of claim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And because that's part of what this is doing from an attestation level, right? And so again, from a security posture and visibility, I've come from Pax8 and we used to use the verbiage of efficiency play, right? And so when I talk about how do you validate your security posture, within Cork, now you can see all your customers. If you do run in MCP, that's where you can start running queries. And so this is where it gets really, really interesting from an efficiency play. because it just depends on like, are you actually validating your tools? If you are, how often are you doing that? Against how many customers, against how many endpoints? Because obviously that's what will multiply this actual number, right? And then so from an economic impact play, what we've been advising our partners to do is to say, hey, like one, if anybody ever hits you up to help them with their cyber questionnaire, great. I can definitely help you with that. Can you send over the policy for me too? Or if you do any QBRs, YBRs, TBRs, enter in the 3-word acronym for when you meet your customer. If you ever do that, this is a great play to actually show them how you MSP as well. And so what we usually say is when that scenario comes up, run it through our analyzer. Because again, kudos to Marcus and team, because this really doesn't have an effect from insurance because we
Cool
don't
tool.
have insurance. It's very cool because it'll take a 72-page policy and dumb it down to a 3-pager where it's going to show the premiums, it's going to show the deductible, executive summary, coverage summary. And I don't want anybody on this call to be a cyber insurance broker, so I don't want you to make any recommendations, any of that, right? But what I usually advise our partners to do is just to tell their customers, look at the risk factors. If there are any red flags, go back to your broker and address those red flags, right? And then we'll actually tell you any sublimits. Obviously, this is a big one, right? Because if for a $2 million policy, not everything's created equal. Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise. Social engineering is only
One of the most
250K.
common attack vectors is not covered.
Shocker, right? Yeah. And so these are one of the things just so your customers understand like what their $2 million policy actually covers. We're going to highlight for them in a really easy, palatable way. And then we're going to say and show you where or if a Cork cyber policy could actually help, right?
And honestly, this is like the benefit of going with some kind of broker that actually understands cyber insurance. I mean, most of these customers you will find like they've been working with the same broker for years, and it was all about the business, the E&O policies, all that kind of stuff, not the cyber policy. And you may have to get them to ask some hard questions, right? About what does their broker know about this? Do they have any experience with it? At least you have to try to advise them to work with a broker just for the cyber portion that knows more about that industry. And you'll find lately that some of those providers actually do know what Cork is. And they do understand that Cork lessens their overall risk, and that can help lead to the reduction in policy cost, honestly, which is pretty expensive, right? Especially if you want the proper amount of social engineering
And
coverage.
just to piggyback on
Just
what Tate,
Yeah, I just saw we've got a question that came in from Ben
please.
C, and it might be relevant to what's the discussion right here.
No, it was actually a while ago. I was gonna ask a question about the tool, so I can ask after this part of it.
Okay, sorry, Ben.
No
Yep.
problem.
Well, so just to give you all an idea of what Tate's addressing right now is Jay McBain. For any of you who know him, he's an analyst for Omida, obviously like big in the channel, right? Always giving out statistics, economical impacts, that whole thing. What he's told us is that right now in North America, so that's US and Canada, there are 1 million licensed insurance brokers. Of those 1 million licensed insurance brokers, there's only 10,000 that are actually cyber insurance experts.
Totally.
So the likelihood of your actual customers getting adequate enough coverage is slim to none.
That's a
right?
great
It's,
stat.
I mean, it's just wild because most people, like if you look at them, they're riders, they're things like that, right? And so this is where the economic impact on our side comes in. So there's 2 scenarios. What we educate our partners on is just to look at what their deductible is going to be and what their premium is going to be. So like for this customer, they're coming up to renewal in June. So they're probably going to pay $11,000 out of pocket come June. And then if they ever need to execute this policy, it's going to be another $10,000. This is where Cork helps on the front end in 2 different fashions. Obviously, one, Tate addressed this, is we take care of the deductible. But what I usually educate the customers on is to say, are you okay from a financial risk perspective to lose $9,500 or less? Because if you get hit with an attack that's less than your deductible, that's also going to be coming out of pocket, especially for an ACH wire transfer loss, because that is very, very common. And so again, just understanding what the financial risk that your customers can actually tolerate. They may say, yeah, I have $9,500 just sitting there to piggyback just for this scenario. That's where it turns into a play where it's, okay, if you just have money sitting there, if we can allocate it differently to where, let's say you spend $1,000 for my overall coverage, then we would take care of that on.
To cover that 10 grand, right? I mean,
correct. Here's the other scenario. Go ahead, please.
The only thing I was going to say is I find it very appropriate that you're sharing an at bay policy. I don't know if anyone else in this community runs into at-bay. As an MSP, you do not want your customers to be using at-bay. And they'll now force you with a lot of their different policies to put on Sentinel-1 that you don't manage on those client devices in order to meet the policy requirements. So it's kind of that same thing of working with a cyber broker that understands MSP, that understands Cork, that understands all these situations. Like, no, we don't need Sentinel-1 installed. Thank you. We use this, right? And I see at Bay now, I'm like, I cringe, right? And so just be aware of that as an MSP.
Totally. And like that's what, right? We try to stick away from things like that where they're basically competing with you for your customer.
Totally.
Yeah. And so like the other portion that I usually bring up is this would be on the lowest coverage of the 25K. Our deductible starts out at 10 grand, right? Which wouldn't really impact their premium. But if you jump up to our $50,000 in protection, which is not a crazy jump in price, right? And what that does though is it actually changes the deductible from 10,000 to 25,000. And so now the scenario changes is what happens if I more than double this? Typically the savings that they'll get from this $11,000 premium, right? So like Tait was talking about where his customers save 40%. Yep. Typically on average, we save clients about 30.
Sure.
Right? Even if you went conservative and just said 20.
Yeah, still great.
It's still great. Again, for something that this customer is already going to purchase in coming in June.
You're just helping them save money on something they're going to buy anyway. I mean, you got to make sure they realize that at some level. Communication is key in all of this. Like, hey, this is what, I mean, I'm very straightforward with mine. I'm very straightforward in general, as you know, but I'm very straightforward with customers. Like, no, this is the actual impact of this. And this is why you need to go look at a cyber broker or look at a policy that can do this for you, because it can save you that kind of money if they realize what you're actually doing. And that is the key. Like, the customers have to be communicating that almost for us to the brokers if they're working with somebody. Like, no, they have all this stuff in place. Like, you got to know about this. It's like, you know, when you have an alarm at your house or a, you know, some kind of, I'm sorry, you have an insurance policy on your home, and then you're like, oh yeah, we have steel, you know, bars on the doors and alarm systems and all this stuff. Like, no one's getting in the house, right? And that's important information to know.
Yeah, and this is where, like what Tay was talking about, we use a couple of different brokers, and this is what's interesting, right? Again, it's more about economical change to where this is a very loaded question, and honestly, I tell partners all the time, like it's if I said, hey, if I can save you money on what you're currently purchasing today, where you just pay less, would that make sense to you? Right? Like it sounds dumb, but it's just one of those things where it's yes, of course I want to do that. I don't give myself the credit where it's like 10 out of 10, because you're going to get that one person that's like, I don't care about saving any money. You're like, keep me with what I'm doing, right? And so totally fine.
You show that person that you are flagging that they only have $250,000 in social engineering coverage on that policy versus a policy that has double or triple that, which is where the fraud tends to come from, right? Especially if you're working with an MSP, because we plugged all the other stuff, right? But it's hard to plug that one.
For sure. And then so like this is what I advise partners on, right? Because we do vet our brokers to make sure that they are cyber experts, so data stream being one of them. And so you can trigger cyber insurance directly from us, right? Which is cool because they use 40 different of the carriers. So like all the traditional ones that your customers are used to, that they can keep those. Why? Honestly, that's not like the important part. Yes, it is cool because your customers will save some money. But what ends up happening too is data stream will always give recommendations back if they can improve the profile of the customer from purchasing managed services through you all. So what I usually say, right, and this isn't a dig at the community, this is from my heart, MSPs are not the greatest salespeople on the planet. And so any way that we can help them, because like,
well, especially selling the value of being an MSP, right? I mean, that is the harder thing for people to sell. Like, you can sell it in comparison to, you know, here's what you're paying now for your internal IT, and here's what we can do. But it's that whole value play of, you know, the vendor management, the real consulting aspect of that job has got to be what you sell on, and it is that same. Get it to the CFOs, not to the CTOs, if you can, right? So
yeah, because like the scenario that typically plays out, right, is the MSP will come to me and say, hey Andrew, you're paying $100 per user, you don't have SaaS backup, I can add it for $5 per user. Then I start doing the math and I'm like, cool, I'm going to pay you $600 per year. Tait, I've never deleted anything, you guys are great, like, do I actually need this? Sure. But again, as opposed to if I'm paying for something from like cyber insurance, and then you're getting that third-party validation, and it's going to lower my premium,
Yeah,
great, right? And
easy.
so that's just where we're giving you all more ammo to toss in with y'all.
Yep.
But yeah, so Dan, how am I doing on time?
Good. You got about 6, 7 minutes left. I
All
just
right,
want to
cool.
say 6, 7 in honor of my middle schoolers.
What was I lost the panel. What was the third portion? I think I covered the security posture, the economical impact, and what was the third one?
Are you talking about the results from
The
the
poll. Yeah,
the
for
poll?
some reason I
Yep,
can't find it.
economic impact and differentiation. And then the third most was around operational efficiency.
Mm.
And if you think of orphan licenses and zombies and some of the other goodies.
Yeah, so obviously, like operationally, just that going back to that thing where validating all your stuff, this is where you can go in and look at it from your PSA tool. But we also, like our engineering team, especially our sales engineer, really likes to utilize what we call our opportunities savings, but he likes to actually refer to it as a decommissioning tool. Because essentially what it'll do is it'll cross-reference all your tools from a specific time frame of whatever you have. So think about your decommissioning process, call it 60 days, 90 days, whatever. On the 91st day, we're going to start triggering all those all the licenses that are checking in. So a couple of scenarios where that works in onboarding or offboarding, right? But the other one that it really works for as well is if you're switching tools. So from one product to another, because typically you run both of them, you have your decommission process. And then if you don't catch them, it's not like, look, I was on the vendor side for a long time. It's not like all us vendors are raising your hand saying, hey, Tate, you're paying for an extra 6 licenses that you shouldn't, right? And
We
so,
should reduce that bill for you.
yeah, let me reduce that for you. And so, like, go ahead, Dan.
No, I love it. It's one of my favorite things that we have created that we didn't mean to create, where it's like we are literally saving our partners time and money and giving them back money because we are saying, hey, we found these. Would you like to save $1,000 this year? Or in some cases, I think the biggest one we found was over $20,000 in missed licenses that needed to have been decommissioned. I mean, that is massive savings for our partners.
And let me just plug you real quick for a good reason, but this is how these guys think, right? And as an MSP, you got to realize that, like, that it is a partnership kind of thing where they're actually thinking, what can we do to save our partners money or time or hassle? And it's just a different relationship, right? And I'm a big relationship guy. Like every vendor we use outside of maybe our PSA, we have this really close relationship with, and we talk all the time about concepts. I mean, yes, I get on, a bunch of partner advisory councils, but mostly with the ones that listen. I'm on Corks because they listen to what we say. I'm on a few others for the same reason, but it just look for partnerships. This is one, and it can actually not only impact you financially, but help you on your journey. And then they'll come up with some other thing, next month that Marcus thinks of that actually like, oh wait, we'll save you some more money over here, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to look at.
So I'll give you, I know we're not supposed to feature pitch, Dan, but I want to show what Tate's talking about because this was part of what he was asking for, right? Because we have the ability to see all these assets and the software that y'all are having, we actually utilize our tools to see your software vulnerabilities, but we go further than your typical RMM. So right now with our patch managers, we can actually see 13,000 softwares. So we're able to scan the networks
All the
even further.
CVEs and all the documentation you need, right? It's all there.
Correct. So not only the CVEs, but your known vulnerabilities too. And so that's where we're able to surface this to get it to where you guys decide and gals decide, like, hey, what's most prudent to me? What's most critical? What do I actually need to address? Is this my top client and they have 50% of their environment has a known and critical vulnerability? Probably need to get on that. And so this is where we just we're trying to surface as much information to you all. And as Tate was talking about, this wasn't even a thing 2 months ago, right? And so we're starting to understand because we have so much data and so much hook into so many tools that we can provide some pretty cool stuff for y'all. And so again, like the things from requests and all those pieces, we take that very, very seriously. And it's not just to put in the suggestion box. We really want to try to implement those as fast as possible because shocker, it makes us more sticky if you're in our tool every single day and utilizing us, right? So but I think that covers the generalization, Dan. I think that gives us an idea of what We do, but I do want
Yeah,
to.
yeah. One last thing, Andrew, before we
Yeah, please.
switch over to a couple other questions I've got. And one of the things in the poll was also around M&A. And can
Okay.
you just walk through how you've been educating a bunch of partners of late to help think through consolidating a lot of different motion, a lot of different data, and then auditing some of that?
Yeah, so I probably drive Marcus crazy because I'm always asking him for stuff and saying, "Hey, like, can we do this?" And so
But that's why we
the
love you. So keep
that
going.
yeah, no, I mean part of it, right? But usually he's like, "Yeah, I can. Just give me some time." So that's the best part of this. So from an M&A perspective, the way I really thought about this, because I've worked with a lot of partners who are under that portion where they're going after and buying MSPs. And again, another statistic from Jay McBain is that the average MSP, when they consume another MSP, to get the product parity usually takes about 18 months, right?
Takes
Because
a
usually when
long
you buy,
time. Yeah.
yeah, it takes a long time, right? And so I think about managing it that from that perspective, because what it would be is like a grandfather, father, child view, where the top MSP would be up here, and then instead of the clients, it would be MSP1, MSP2. But then from a due diligence perspective, as you're going to go and acquire another MSP, you get really intimate with them, right? You start to ask them questions under the hood, like, what's your EBITDA? What's your taxes like? What the whole gamut of stuff, so you understand like what you're purchasing, right? So then I started saying, well, what if part of your due diligence was to hook up into their RMM because it only takes 3 minutes to actually do that? Then you can start seeing their security posture to understand what products they're actually consuming as well. Because me personally, if the MSP that I was looking to buy was what a complete 180 to what I currently managed. So let's say I was an Autotask shop and they were a ConnectWise shop and everything else is completely different. It's probably not worth my time unless their EBITDA was through the roof
Yep.
for me to actually consume them. And so those are the types of things that I actually want to be in front of and to help you all. Cause like the other part of it too is imagine if it was just like a security questionnaire attestation where it's like, hey, how's your posture? Who's going to really say out of an A through F, I'm a D minus? And so this is where we can really get that data from those people that you're actually looking to purchase from a due diligence perspective. So that's how we've been advising partners who are proactively like or actively within the M&A space to just to help them because the uplift from connecting into tools isn't very hard.
Yeah, I wonder if you could provide an MSP like yours truly with like almost a separate, you know, Cork portal that doesn't have the financial protection package for so they can connect all those systems to give visibility on it to the MSP that's looking to acquire that MSP, just to give them like, oh, there's everything, right? It just might be a nice little bonus. Just throwing out ideas. We'll talk about it later.
That's why we have Marcus on here today.
Yep. Hi, Marcus.
I love it. Andrew, thanks for walking through quite a bit. Tate, I should actually thank both of you guys, right? Tag team and everything. So, and for those that are listening, yes, we are recording everything and we will ship it back and we'll kind of break up some of those segments too with some supplementary so that you can consume as is. You don't have to be scribbling along. So,
I'll just say real quick, I hope this was entertaining and you know informative for anyone on this call, especially that it either isn't utilizing Cork well enough or is looking at Cork. And if you have questions of an MSP, feel free to reach out to me too. I'm real easy to find on
well,
LinkedIn. So,
yeah, let's get right into a couple real life examples with you, Tate. I mean,
sure.
you've got some specifics on things that we just talked about. I want to start with the before situation, right? Like, what conversations were you having with your clients that was really missing something that led you to Cork? Like, why are you here in the first place? The
Again, I
before
mean,
and
I came
after.
into this from this tool gives me more visibility, and then you know the repercussion of that was a financial protection product, right? And so it definitely, once it was in place in our situation, led to different questions on those business review kind of calls, or especially, I mean, you know, I'm the one who always had to fill out the cyber, you know, renewal form. Always a fun time, and just you know having to like look at that thing now. Of course, I can throw it through Claude and get a lot of answers, but I'd rather you know get it through the system here and bring it to the broker that can understand it, so I don't have to do that work. right? And I can help convince the client this is why you got to do it, especially when they get back. And the questionnaire for most of these intelligent cyber brokers is not like, pages worth. I think when we go through data streams again, it's like 4 questions or something dumb. I mean, it's really easy because they already have, enough visibility. So, that was what maybe changed. And again, I just looking at the tool from a monitoring standpoint, it just gave us more visibility on the disparate tools that we had and how they actually do work together or can work together if done properly, which forced us to then automate more systems, right? And so it'll catapult you into a more mature MSP if you use it correctly. And I think that's a big thing that's not talked about enough.
So, I mean, the other piece of maturity is showing up for your clients when things go sideways,
Absolutely.
right? Because selling confidence to your clients is often a hard thing. It's one of the reasons that we do QBRs and, business meetings and auditing and validating all of the things. But who got to leverage Cork in a variety of different ways, including a big old check writing session. And you got
Yep.
to be the superhero, right? Wearing a variety of capes, all of them flowing valiantly, beautifully through the wind as you showed up on the doorstep. Tell us the story. What happened? What went sideways?
It's a super relevant situation for an MSP because it's one of those times where, one, you've got all these email security products in place to stop these fake phishing emails, et cetera, et cetera. You've got, cyber security awareness training that you're forcing everyone, you're forcing everyone to go through because the human element is the most important in this equation. And even then, an email goes through because that's legit in the fact that it came from a legit email server of an account that was completely compromised. So our client sees these emails from a known trusted vendor. Yes, he should have, of course, picked up the phone and do all these things, but like we couldn't stop that email from getting in. I mean, it was super legit. It even like matched the tone of the emails with this client beforehand. I mean, they did their homework. And
It
then
reminded me of a scene from Catch Me If You Can and
totally.
Leonardo
Yeah, no,
DiCaprio in
they
the
they they
bathtub.
did a really good job here. And
Yeah.
so they got through the email security systems, I think, of course. I don't think there's any that would have stopped this thing because it had just been compromised. It wasn't like a known thing. And then they get to, the owner of a company who knows better and he's been trained better, but he still goes, "Oh, I'll just change that bank, wire based on this email I got." And knowing that that is an almost impossible situation for an MSP to like block or solve. And then Cork literally, so a combination of his cyber insurance, which did pay out a bunch, and Cork paid out a big fat check to them to cover a lot of that loss. And this is a third of $1 million loss, right? So it's not a small time, loss. And yes, of course, again, he should have known better, but people make mistakes. And this is a way to like say, okay, we've done everything we can, and a mistake still happened, and Cork and the broker or the cyber insurance policy company, they both paid out, which was, I mean, it was awesome. And then that client immediately is like, well, hey, can we get more coverage? And that's a great conversation to have. And we, I know you guys have these lower levels now, the 25s and the 50s. We've always had the 100 level, and I'm like super comfortable at that level personally. And then we can sell into the higher if you need to. And we use it on ourselves too. We use your MSP product.
I mean, over $300,000 in international fraud payment
Yep.
sent by an extraordinarily intelligent and experienced CEO of a business, long-term business,
Yep.
right? And this is, a large customer of yours who you've done business with for a long time. And
2008. So
and
almost 20 years.
right? And leveraging great technology that you've been providing and going through training. I mean, there's just a lot of goodness here.
Sure.
Individual did not pick up the phone and validate some of these things. But we're living in a world where these events are on the rise. AI enhanced threat
Mhm.
actor, business email compromise, and or non-business, non-email, right? Like text and phone calls, etc. Right? These things are getting so much better. There are some emails I see that are so well written. It's better than some of the emails I get from my own employees, right? Some of my own teammates.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's a low bar, Andrew. So, what can I say? But the point is, right? The bad guys keep getting better. And if we're not talking about financial protection of some flavor
Yep.
with our clients, then we're doing a disservice to those clients. Because Tate, tell us, I mean, you do this more
Bad
often than
things are
I do.
going to happen no matter what, right? And this is what this layer's for, along with cyber insurance. But yeah.
Right. I mean, are you having more success talking about financial protection and their business needs, or do you have more success talking about, hey, here's more fun technologies that you should buy from me?
Yeah, right. People love talking about technology these days. No, you're way better off, as I've said before. I mean, having the business conversation, and this is just a really easy lead into that conversation. There are a lot harder ways to get to there. This is like, oh, look, we've got this thing, and it will do all these lovely things, and double check on all your systems, even how we're doing it, how we're performing, and oh yeah, by the way, it's got a financial benefit if you get in trouble. Like, I mean, it's a pretty easy sell. It should be.
Yeah. And I would encourage, as we come out in the last 10 minutes, any attendees, please feel free to pop any questions in for either Tate or Andrew or our engineering team into the panel and or into the chat window, and we
Or
will get those.
find us on LinkedIn or ask your rep at Cork if you have one, if for my info, and I'm happy to talk to you.
We will get those answered for sure. So Tate and Andrew, look, you guys have been in the channel a long time. You guys have been taking care of clients a long time. 2026 has been a year of acceleration because of AI. Sorry, I had to bring it up at least one point, but the timelines are getting condensed.
Yes.
And I think that people have different needs in today than they did a year ago, 6 months ago, right? I'm curious, how important is aggregating data or understanding signals even like faster than you could before? Like how understanding signals and then being able to make quick decisions. Tate, are you living in a different world? And if so, in what way?
I mean, everyone's living in a different world, right? And my favorite question is like, oh, do you have any idea where things are going? I'm like, no. Does anyone really? Like, I mean, it's like going to be the Wild West at some level, but I think the most important thing is when you're having this conversation about AI, which is it has to happen. You need security has to be like the biggest thing you talk about. I mean, you can talk about productivity all day long, but you've got to talk about security, especially if you're going to be an MSP who wins at some level and can be relevant in an AI driven world where it's not about replacing people, it's about making people more productive with the tools that they have. And again, you can set them up with a managed way to do that, but you've got to talk about security all the time. Like, hey, we're going to lead you so you use this secure AI platform. Great, let's block all the other ones, right? And there's tools available to do this, and you guys can figure this out. But you've got to talk about security. And then this is just a big element of that. And again, a very easy thing when you're talking about security. It's like, oh, hey, while we're doing all this, again, why I sell it as a bundle is you get this benefit of a package that not only can monitor all these services, but give you financial protection, right? That answer the question again. I mean, the world is changing very rapidly. We all know it. You've got to stay relevant. It's one of the arrows in the quiver kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And operationalizing these things are oftentimes some of the hardest, right? Look, you guys are known out in Seattle as some of the most customer-centric folks that I've ever met. It's, a pleasure working with you guys in that sense. How do you leverage Cork or tools in general to make sure that you're having the best QBR or business conversation with clients? How critical has that conversation become?
Well, of course, the first thing again that we talk about on these business reviews is security. I mean, because I think also as an MSP, you can't. It's hard to. It's that meme that we see everywhere, like, hey, nothing's wrong. What do we pay you guys for? Oh, hey, one thing's wrong. What do we pay you for? It's showing the value of what you're doing, and I think clients, unless you tell them, don't really understand how much of your time is now spent on security. And it just went crazy, 5 years ago, and it almost gets worse all the time. And so when we can use any tool including Cork at some level, to show like, here's all the things we have to do, all the things we're monitoring for you all the time. And again, I guess how Cork makes that easier for us, you know, to make you safe, to protect you. I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but these are the things that I just think of all the time. Is in those meetings, it is security and AI, of course, right now, but as two things, and it's like you don't really go through a lot of help desk tickets anymore. That's not really what you should be focused on in those meetings. It should be about, I mean, we do budgets for our clients. Like, you know, we've created our own, you know, account management kind of tool, and it's got forecasting and budgeting, and you know, here's all the machines you need to replace next year, and here's how much your annualized security cost is and the components that go into it. And I think communication is just really important. I think for years, all of us, and myself included, you know, you just did things to your clients, but you didn't necessarily talk to them about it. You did it in an overall, like, hey, we're here to protect you kind of sense, but I think it's a little more material now. Like how are you doing that? What are you doing with it? Like what? And then you get into those questions about where's our data going, who's consuming that, which is, you know, becoming an important conversation when you get into AI. Like, where's that information going, and how is it all connected? And you know, you get a client that set up their own, you know, Claude instance, and doesn't know how to do it properly, you can make a real big mess, you know. And so it's, you got to have these conversations.
Well, what I've been saying, Tate, like what's been interesting over, like, I would say probably like the last 3 or 4 years, the uptick in end users asking how UMSP has
Sure.
gone up, right? And like what you're talking about is like, how do you show an end user that you run a backup, right? Like those types of things where it's like, do they even know? And so I think that's where another portion, like you said, where Cork really helps just to like simplify it. Here's all the things that you have, right? And so it's pretty straightforward. The other housekeeping thing I want to throw in here is in the chat, Bill Taylor, our partner success manager, threw in his information. If anybody on this call wants to have a one-on-one for existing partners that want to walk through any of this, that want to have an update, a refresher, because what's interesting is we'll base it around your go-to-market and how you're selling Cork, what you're doing with it. And then we'll obviously, if you have questions about any improvements or best tips and tricks, that kind of thing, Bill can help you out, or I can help you out, or any one of our engineering team can help you out. But then obviously you can scan this QR code and see all the other sessions that we have coming up.
And Bill came out to Seattle last week and had a good old time. And I want to say Bill's great. So make sure you reach out to Bill if you can. We had fun. I mean, he didn't jump off the boat in the water, but you know, I'll get him to do that next time.
Only a -1.
Got a good video. Thank you, Bill. Yes, Bill did get a very good video of a few of us jumping off the boat in the water. So it's fun.
Perfect. Thanks for popping the rest of these sessions. I look forward to having you all join us. I'll send the video as a follow-up. Tait, thank you for being in the hot seat with us. It's always a pleasure. You push us hard, and that makes us all better. Love the transparency of it. That's how we operate, right?
Love the relationship, Dan, and I you know, love talking in general. So you know, good fit for these things.
Conscientious friction. That's what where we get a little better traction together. So thank you for all of those that have joined us on today's call, and we'll talk soon. Say love. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.